we go, launch control active. Oh, so hard off the line. Really good fun. I thought it might be a little bit bland out here, but actually... Hey guys, welcome to my Mk8 Volkswagen Golf R review. I've always had a soft spot for the Golf R, and in fact back in 2018 when I was in Australia, I had the keys to a Mach 7.5 for about 5 days. I absolutely loved my time with that car. It was a fantastic daily, and I actually put it up against a BMW M140i in a twin test, which was obviously BMW's hot hatch of the time, and I concluded that the Golf R was the better all-rounder, although I'd still take the M140i because of its 6-pot and the fact it was rear-wheel drive. It was just a bit more fun most of the time. We'll start this review by having a quick look around the outside of the car. It is a little bit dirty because it's done 600 miles in the 6 days that I've had this car. We'll then jump inside, have a look at the cabin and some of the tech before taking it out onto the public road to see what it's like out there. And we'll finish back here at Snetterton Circuit and take it out on the circuit and push it to my limits, because after all, it is the hottest Golf available, so it would only be fair that we take it out on a circuit and really push it, get it up to some big speeds and see what it's all about. Massive thanks to BOTB for sponsoring this video. BOTB have been changing people's lives for the past 20 years with their dream car competition. Their dream cars now come with a whopping £50,000 in the boot. This brand new Golf R is just one of their cars available to win with £50,000 in the boot. Tickets for this are just £2.05. That's £2.05 that could potentially win you £90,000 worth of prize. You have to be 17 years and older to enter the competition. If this doesn't take your fancy, they've got about 150 cars to choose from, ranging from just £1.50 a ticket up to £5. The link will be in the description below, also in a pinned comment, so head over there and support those guys because they help support me and my channel, and be in with a chance of winning something like this brand new Golf R or whatever else takes your fancy on the botb.com website. Good luck. The new Golf R starts at just under £40,000 here in the UK. This particular press car is just shy of 45 grand, so it has about £5,000 worth of options on it. That include the beautiful lapis blue paintwork, panoramic glass sunroof, it has the winter pack, it has a reversing camera, 19-inch alloy wheels, and the DCC, the dynamic chassis control, which is very important, as we'll talk about a bit later. It doesn't have the £2,000 performance pack though, and that includes some extra driving modes like the Nürburgring and drift mode. It also includes lifting the top speed from a limited 155 to a quite ridiculous 168 miles an hour. That performance package also includes some styling tweaks, including a roof or boot spoiler and some 19-inch alloy wheels, which are upgraded from the regular or standard 18-inch items. Under the bonnet, we have a very familiar EA 888 2-litre 4-cylinder turbocharged engine that's been around in the Volkswagen group for many years now. I believe this is the 4th evolution, so it has obviously changed and been upgraded over those years. This particular unit produces 320 horsepower and 420 newton meters of torque. It runs through Volkswagen's 7-speed DSG gearbox and obviously their 4Motion or 4-wheel drive system, which is a bit more complex with this very latest Mk8 version. Volkswagen have also upgraded the brakes over the previous Golf R, so the front discs are about 5% larger, and the actual calipers themselves are now aluminium to save on unsprung weight. This Golf R sits 20mm lower than a regular Golf, and that all helps make it look a bit more aggressive for the road. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Mk8 Golf when I first saw them, especially in press shots and in magazines. When I started seeing them on the road, I still wasn't convinced. But living with this for a week, I have really started to grow to like its looks. I think the 19-inch optional alloys on this particular car really help, because I think the 18s just look a little bit too small. It does have these little arch extenders on the car, little plastic things. That is part of a new regulation that basically stipulates your wheels have to be a certain amount of distance inside the arches, and manufacturers cheat that by putting little plastic guards on the outside of the wheel arches. BMW do it, most manufacturers do it, but they can clip off quite easily. I think they look quite tacky. Let's jump inside and have a look at the cabin and some of the infotainment that has really frustrated me during my time with this car. This car's ability is pretty much unmatched in the hot hatch world today. Yes, the AMG A45S is a little bit quicker and does have a nicer cabin, but it's in a totally different price bracket. I think for 40 odd grand, this is a brilliant package. But for all of its good points, which we will get to a bit later, there are plenty of bad points, and I want to run through them now. But please don't get offended by these, especially if you happen to own a Mk8 Golf or Mk8 Golf R. I'm just pointing out the obvious, and I'm just being honest, because some of these things really do frustrate me, but they haven't ruined this car as a package, because its good points do outweigh its bad points. The first thing to talk about is cabin quality. In here, it doesn't feel any more special than a Golf Mk8 R-Line, which is about £26,000. The plastics are just not really acceptable. Normally you do get some cheaper plastics below the waistline in Golfs, but in this particular car they've crept up. That is just horrible. And down here, all of this is just not up to the standard that I think it should be in a 40+ grand Golf. Then we look at the infotainment system. Well, that has been the biggest frustration for me. I didn't like it before I got in this car because I've tried it out in cars like the Cupra Formentor, where I really didn't get to grips with it in the time that I had that car. And I've been with this car for a week as well, and it hasn't got any better. Yes, I've learnt some shortcuts thanks to my good friend Andrew Chappell, who runs Volkswagen YouTube channel. So if you're into your Volkswagens, I'll put a link to his YouTube channel below, because he's brilliant. He knows everything about these cars, and I have been questioning him lots about this and getting some tricks and tips. Sometimes it takes 5 seconds to go between, let's say, your media and your nav screen. Sometimes it doesn't change at all. If you want to turn the traction control off, unfortunately that's not an easy operation either. The quickest way is to swipe down, press the off or ESC off button, then off again. So that's 1, 2, 3, and then confirm. Now it's off. So that's 4 times. Me sitting here in a stationary car park, well, it's relatively easy. But again, when you're on the move, if you're approaching a spirited road and you want to have a bit of fun, trying to do that is distracting and difficult. And it doesn't always work because the system sometimes bugs out. Down here, we have far too fewer buttons because of the touch screen and Volkswagen trying to clean up the cabin. It does look aesthetically okay, I guess. But then when you move up to the steering wheel, we have far too many buttons. In fact, there's 20 buttons here. They are in the wrong place. You don't know where you are in terms of where your fingers are and which buttons you're touching. You have to look down again, just like you do with the infotainment screen. And when you hold the wheel in the correct position, which is this, the insides of your hands actually touch some of the buttons. So this hand, my left hand, cycles through the drive modes when I don't want it to, and my right hand is constantly turning on the steering wheel heating, which I'm sure is going to be very frustrating when I'm out on track. And then when you want to use them, they don't necessarily work very well. This R button on the left here cycles through the drive modes, so if you press it softly, it should cycle through the modes, and if you press it down really hard, it will go straight into race. But unfortunately, like many things in here, it doesn't always work. Sometimes you can press it over and over and over again, and it just keeps jumping through modes. So the buttons that are here, I wish were down here, but in real button form, like proper buttons. None of this haptic stuff, it just doesn't work. The steering wheel itself's okay. I wasn't sure of the shape of it when it arrives. I like quite simple steering wheels, as you know, but it's not been too bad to live with. I quite like the paddles on the back. They are nice and long and extended, and I believe much nicer than the ones that are in the Golf GTI, which I'm actually getting next week, the Club Sport version. The digital dash, or whatever Volkswagen call it, again, is massively frustrating. There's about 7 or 8 different views, and really, surprise, surprise, the one that I like the most is the traditional dials with the speedo in the middle. So if this was a set of analog dials, it would do a much better and less frustrating job. This does have a head-up display though, and I have to say that's pretty good. These seats are pretty good. Obviously you can get a leather interior as well, but I think this cloth and Alcantara definitely give you a bit more support. The only negative with them is, as far as I can tell, they're the same seats that are in a £26,000 Golf R line, and if I just spent 45 grand on this Golf R, I'm not sure how I'd feel about that, but I can't complain. The driving position is pretty good, but I don't think it's quite as good as the Audi S3, but maybe I'm imagining that. I haven't driven that car for probably about 6 months now. I think that is the majority of my complaints out the way. I hope you're still watching, because now we're going to take it out on the road and talk about its good bits. First things first, let's test out its acceleration figures. Volkswagen claim this new Golf R will do the 0 to 62 sprint in just 4.7 seconds, although various owners and testers out there are discovering it's a lot quicker than that. And in fact, in Carwell drag races and Archie Hamilton drag races, it's pretty much shown that it's the fastest hot hatch out there, bar the far more expensive A45S, and that car has 100 extra horsepower. So this is really punching above its weight. I've now set my race box to do 0 to 60 miles an hour as opposed to 62, so we will definitely see faster than the 4.7 seconds, but it's just a case of how fast we're going to see. So left foot is hard down the brake. I'm in race mode. I've got all of the traction aids switched off. Right foot on the accelerator. Here we go. Launch control active. Oh, so hard off the line. And there we go. 4.1 seconds. 4.1 seconds. And that's a tank full of fuel. I'm 105 kilos. I've got all my camera gear in the boot. Not making excuses for this car, but on the right day, this could probably do a 4 flat to 60 miles an hour. You can add a tenth or a tenth and a half to that for 62 miles an hour, but that's still 3 or 4 tenths under Volkswagen's claim. So mighty impressive, very, very fast in a straight line. We now know it has acceleration figures to back up and justify its R badging, but what's it like as a Golf? Because people buying one of these need it to do the daily duties very well. They need it to be very practical, and it does have 5 seats in here, or 4 large seats if you like, for adults. It has a reasonable sized boot, although it's slightly smaller than this R due to the 4-wheel drive system. But what I want to talk about, and a real standout feature for this particular car for me, is its exceptional ride quality. And this car has the optional larger 19-inch wheels, so I was worried that they would ruin the ride quality, and they don't at all. But there is one reason for that. This car has the optional DCC, which is dynamic chassis control. That's about 800 quid, I believe, and worth every single penny. It gives you about 18 different adjustments for the dampers, and when you're in the comfort drive mode, which I am now because it's the default drive mode, the dampers are just so nice and soft and fluid, and it just irons out everything on a typical British B road, which is so important for me in a car like this. Obviously you can ramp that right up, which we'll do once we get out on track later, but my default mode in comfort or in my individual mode, I have it right down, like towards the softer end of the scale, because that's what you want in a car for the road. This car has 4 different driving modes. Comfort, which is the default mode, which I'm in at the moment, which gives you a very comfortable ride. quite a lazy throttle response, which obviously improves economy. Not too much engine sound in the cabin, just a really nice mode to wake up and drive to work in or go down to the shops in. The next one is Sports, which stiffens up the chassis somewhat, gives you a bit better throttle response and a bit more exhaust sound and cabin engine sound, which isn't really that authentic. Then you go to Race, which is the most aggressive setting, and obviously that stiffens everything up again, gives you even better throttle response, but also pipes through a lot more fake cabin engine sound, which I'm not the biggest fan of. Then you have an individual mode where you can set all of your individual options. The only issue with all of those is to go to the modes, you can use the touchscreen here, but there's a button on the steering wheel, and if you push it hard, like a double click almost, it goes straight into Race in the most aggressive mode. So I've got the Sports automatic gearbox, and I can pull a paddle, go straight into manual, and it does feel instantly really fast and ready for a fight. But what you must do when you go into Race or individual, whatever your spirited driving setting is, you must then turn the traction control off, because I've found, let's just focus, you can see there I had my eyes off the road for a good 2 or 3 seconds, because it's just impossible to do it otherwise. What I have found is if you leave the traction control on, the traction control light is constantly flickering and you're losing power and torque all of the time. Like into a corner like this, a third gear corner, because it is so punchy, the right inside wheel will start spinning up a little bit. But if you turn everything off, then it allows the all-wheel drive system to send that power to the right wheels, and you get maximum power and maximum corner exit. So you've got to turn the traction control system off in these to really utilize the setup of the car and the brilliant chassis. Some would argue that MPG figures in a punchy car like this are not important, but I would say that a lot of people going out to buy a Golf are buying it on finance and potentially stretching their budget like I did when I was a bit younger, and actually miles to the gallon is important. And on the way down here this morning, which was mostly motorway driving, I actually averaged 36.5 miles to the gallon, which I think's really impressive, especially when you consider those acceleration figures we managed to get earlier on. Let's not waste any more time on the road in this car. Let's take it out onto the Snetterton circuit and see what it's like when I can really push it to my limits at least. I'm really hoping that it's as enjoyable out there as it is on the public road. Okay guys, here we are at Snetterton. Big shout out and thanks to W2R Track Days for allowing me to come down and road test this Golf R this afternoon. Also huge thanks to Adrian Flux Car Insurance who are making sure that I'm safe out on track. They cover me for all of my track days, so massive thanks to Adrian Flux. Remember, a link to W2R and Adrian Flux in the description below. I'm in race mode. I've turned all of the traction control devices off, and I've also disabled all of the pedestrian safety sort of automatic braking functions, because they are an absolute pain in the arse out on track, as you can imagine. I've been out for a handful of laps just to get temperature in the tyres so I can drop some of the pressures and stuff, because tyre pressures are very important on a track day when you start to push the car a little bit. My early impressions, well, it's very good. There's a lot of very fast machinery out here today. So although in my head I'm feeling like this car's quick, I certainly feel like I'm slow amongst everyone out here. We'll just take half a lap or so to get up to speed. I've got a very fast E46 coming up behind me, so we'll let him go, and then we'll talk a little bit about what this car is like out here when I start to push it. So I'm obviously using the paddles, essentially manual, but unfortunately, as with so many DSG boxes, when you accelerate and it gets anywhere close to the red line like it's going to do now, it will change gear on its own, which is a little bit frustrating when you're out on track. But I just short shift a little bit to stop that from happening. So therefore, I'm kind of in control. I believe if you go for the performance pack, then you get an actual real manual action, if you like, and it won't change up without you doing so. Right, let's push on a little bit here. So that's 100 miles an hour, 110. It's 120 miles an hour, and 130, just over 134 onto the brakes. Trail brake in here. This is a real tight little section after a flat out section. The car feels really nice and balanced though, really does. The tyres, they're good, they're not the best though. I'm not sure how much trust I have in them. I really need to spend a bit more time experimenting with them. Obviously it's a new car, new tyres, but I know this track thankfully pretty well. I have to say the brakes are really, really good. So here we go, start finish, let's do a lap. And that's 100 miles an hour. That's 120. Just nudging 130 as I come onto the brakes. So similar to what I do in my M2 actually, maybe a little bit slower, but it does feel good. This car does feel really good. And most importantly, the brakes are good, which gives you confidence on a track day. Foot down, you can feel it shuffling the power around, and off you go. I guess the thing with this car is it would be pretty rapid around here in the wet. There's 100 mile an hour again. That's 115 onto the brakes. I could probably brake a little bit later, but I want to keep the temperatures slightly in line so I can have a bit more fun. That's the thing with a track day in a road car. You can go out and do 3 really hard laps, but then all the temperatures are just through the roof and you can't continue to have fun. So if you go out sort of 8.5 tenths, I say that as I brake quite deep into here, it's so good through that section there. Definitely quicker than my M2 comp, just because of the all-wheel drive section, or all-wheel drive grip rather. Really good. I'm starting to understand and feel what this car's all about. With good brakes, good handling. It feels a little bit soft out here, as all road cars tend to do. It's 135. Really good fun. I thought it might be a little bit bland out here, but actually it's really good fun. Oh, we're catching up to Lancia Delta Integrale. Look at that. Hopefully we can get close enough to show you guys. Oh, look at that Martini racing livery. As the Mini goes down the inside, that's risky. Beautiful car, lovely. Get to about 135 before we hit the brakes down here. There we go. Bleed off the brakes slowly. Car slides out a little bit. Catch the apex late here. Then off the limiter here for a second. Hard on the brakes. Get the nose in. You can have a bit of fun on the way out if you want. I've got everything switched off. Full stability and traction. Turned in a little bit early there. It's hard not to really. Just grab fourth down here, about 120 into the braking zone. Again, try and get it stopped, turned, then on the power. Little dab of the brakes here, settle the car, get it turned in. That's a fast corner through there. Try not to be too greedy through here, you can use a lot of curb. There's a little bump on the exit back there, hence the car getting really unsettled. It understeers a bit through here. We're slowly catching roller coaster section, which is pretty sketchy in the wet. And then you got this really fast final right-hander, which is taken at sort of 85 miles an hour. Tightens up, tightens up, tightens up into the final corner. And across the line. Okay, well, that was a fairly quick lap for me. Made a few mistakes. It does inherently get a little bit of understeer mid-corner if you're going a bit fast, but no drastic amounts of understeer, and you know it's coming. And again, that's mostly down to the tyres. They're actually not bad, they're just not Cup 2s. I really like the way this car handles out on track. I'm really impressed, and I'm intrigued to see actually how different it is in terms of lap time compared to my M2 competition. So hopefully you've just seen that on the screen. You've seen an overlay of me and my manual M2 comp around this circuit. I reckon they're going to be very similar sort of times. I've got no idea at this point. But yeah, impressed with this car on the road, impressed with it on the track. Just wish that all of this stuff wasn't here. I wish it was just back to basics. I wish I had analog dials in front of me and a very easy to use infotainment system that wasn't so buggy. Also, something else that I've noticed, especially out on track, because you get quite hot out here. Obviously it's a little bit of a workout and the car is pumping out a lot of heat, so you tend to have your aircon on, but because of where the vents are in this car, they're so low that it's nowhere near your head, and even if you've got them facing up, they still kind of miss your face because of the steering wheel, etc. So the vents being down at your belly button height just don't help you cooling down on a track day like this. But obviously that's just a minor gripe. Massive thanks for watching, guys. Remember to check out the link below in the description or the pinned comment for BOTB. See if you can win yourself one of these or anything else they've got on there. They've got about 150 cars to choose from, and they always support me, so really appreciate it if you use that link and head over and see if you can win one. Imagine this car with 50 grand of cash in the boot. You could do a lot of track days and go through a lot of tyres with that cash. Huge thanks to W2R as always, and Adrian Flux for keeping me safe, and obviously Volkswagen UK Press as well for allowing me to go out and track their lovely 45 grand Golf R, because not all press companies allow you to do that. So massive thanks to them, and I will see you at the next video. Thanks a lot for tuning in.